They stole $15 million from me and still had the audacity to drag me out by my hair, like I was the thief. My name is Sierra, and from wherever you're watching this, stay with me, because I need to ask, have you ever been betrayed so deeply by family that the air around you stopped feeling safe? That every smile, every "we love you," felt like a lie sharpened into a weapon? Let me tell you how it happened. It was supposed to be a normal afternoon. I had just come home from a meeting, my final attempt to get answers about my disappearing accounts, assets, and the money my late parents had left me. I stepped into the house to find them. My mother-in-law, father-in-law, sister-in-law Vanessa, and my husband Ronin, all seated in the living room. Ronin didn't even meet my eyes. His mother folded her arms, a smug smirk pulling at her red lipstick. "We've made a decision," she said. "This house is no longer yours. You can leave now. Vanessa needs the space." I blinked. "What?" "You've been unstable," she added. "Aggressive. Paranoid. And frankly, we're tired of your entitlement. You're not the only one who deserves nice things." That's when Vanessa chimed in, twirling her manicured fingers. "Maybe next time you won't be so careless with your money." My jaw clenched. "I didn't give you permission to touch any of my inheritance." My father-in-law stood up. "It's not yours anymore. You entrusted it to this family. Now pack your things and go." I laughed, bitter and stunned. "You think I'm walking out after everything you've stolen?" "You won't be walking," my mother-in-law snapped. "You'll be dragged if you have to." I ran upstairs. My heart was pounding, chest tight with a rage I'd never known before. I opened the closet and grabbed the red suitcase. Shoved in what I could: passport, my mom's sapphire ring, the vintage letters from my dad, the last photo we had together before the accident. That bag wasn't just luggage. It was memory. Blood. Worth. I zipped it, started down the stairs. She was waiting for me. That same smirk, venom in lipstick form. "You're not taking anything from here. Give me that bag." "No," I said. Quiet. Firm. "Give me that bag," she shrieked. She lunged, grabbed one handle. I clutched the other. We struggled. Then, her husband came from behind. Ronin just stood there, watching. I felt his father's hand slam into my scalp, fingers twisting my hair like it was rope. And just like that, he dragged me out of the house, down the stairs, across the front porch, like I was trash. Neighbors watched. One even pulled out her phone. No one stepped in. When they threw me onto the sidewalk, my elbow scraped the concrete. Blood started pooling around the torn sleeve of my blouse. My bag landed next to me, flung open. My mother's ring rolled across the driveway. And I swear to God, Vanessa laughed. Just then, I stood up slowly, picked up the ring, brushed the blood from my arm, and I looked each of them in the eye. My voice calm, my soul on fire. "You're going to regret this. Not today, but soon. And I promise you won't see it coming." Then I turned, and I walked away, with nothing but the one thing they never managed to steal: my name. My parents didn't leave me riches. They left me a legacy. A chain of antique jewelry stores, a small vineyard in Spain, and a trust account worth just over $15 million. The result of years of sweat, sacrifice, and smart investing. When they died in a car crash 5 years ago, I was 27, alone, and married. I remember Ronin holding me at the funeral, whispering, "You'll never be alone again." What I didn't realize was that I had just inherited a kingdom and married into a family of thieves. At first, everything felt supportive. Ronin's parents, Edward and Sylvia, comforted me, helped me navigate the paperwork. Sylvia even cried with me once while organizing the trust documents. "We're family now," she said, "and family takes care of each other." That phrase would come back to haunt me, because while they were offering me tea and hugs, they were also gathering documents, signatures, legal access. They convinced me that consolidating the assets into a central family trust would protect me from taxes, scammers, and greedy outsiders. And I believed them, because I had no reason not to trust my own husband. Within months, changes began. Edward took over, managing the jewelry stores. He said I was grieving too much to handle the staff. He fired my family's old employees and replaced them with loyal people. Sylvia convinced me to lease out the vineyard. Vanessa, the younger sister, was suddenly gifted a new apartment, a car, and a boutique store to pursue her dream. She hadn't worked a full-time job a day in her life. When I asked Ronin, he just shrugged. It's still all yours. It's just under the family name. But my name started vanishing. The jewelry stores were renamed. The vineyard management changed. The trust accounts were moved into a joint advisory system. Suddenly, I needed approval to access my own money. It's just protocol, Edward said. You agreed to shared stewardship, Sylvia smiled. Stop being so difficult, Vanessa snapped. I was the one who built nothing, but paid for everything. They made me feel ungrateful when I questioned things. Money changes people, Sierra, they'd say, as if I was the one manipulating bank accounts. Even Ronin. He would come home late, smell like expensive scotch, and say, "You're being paranoid. You have everything. Why can't you just relax?" Because I knew something was wrong. But every time I reached for answers, they handed me guilt instead of truth. And then the worst betrayal came on our 3rd anniversary. I had asked Ronin if I could access some of the liquid assets to invest in a women's entrepreneurship initiative. Something in my mother's memory, he said. We already used it for the family. My throat went dry. All of it. Not all. Just enough to secure Vanessa's business, your father-in-law's pension trust, and some long-term properties. It's still in the family. Still in the family. Except suddenly, I wasn't the family anymore. That's when I stopped asking and started watching. Because when you feel yourself disappearing, you either fade quietly or you prepare to return like a storm. There's a moment grief turns into clarity. It doesn't come with fireworks. It's quiet, like the air right before a storm. For me, that moment came the night I overheard Vanessa's laughing in the kitchen. She actually believed the money was hers. I mean, who leaves that much to someone so stupid? Sylvia laughed too. Edward added, "Don't worry, sweetheart. Once she signs the house over, we'll be done with her completely." I was standing behind the door, frozen, shaking, not from sadness, but from awakening. It wasn't paranoia. It was betrayal. They weren't helping me manage my inheritance. They had orchestrated a theft with piano keys and politeness. The next morning, I emailed a contact from one of my father's old firms, a man named David Okoro, a forensic accountant who specialized in inheritance audits. I didn't tell anyone. David worked fast. Within days, he requested a full review of the trust structure and recent asset activity. He called me at midnight. "Sierra, you're not going to like what I found." Almost every major asset, the vineyard, the downtown apartment complex, even parts of my mother's antique collection, had been liquidated, transferred, or used as collateral in loans that were funneled into shell companies. Companies tied to Vanessa. Companies signed by Sylvia. And guess what name was used to validate some of those transactions? Mine. Except I never signed them. They forged my signature? David's voice was grim. Not once. Dozens of times. With notaries who were paid off. Some of these documents date back over a year. And just like that, every flash of confusion, every gut feeling I'd ignored, slammed into place like a door locking from the outside. I'd been robbed. From within my own home. And the people doing it called themselves family. I stared at the wall for a long time. Ronin was asleep beside me, breathing peacefully, like a man who never once considered the storm that could be born from the silence he dismissed. I got up, opened my laptop, started downloading every bank statement, every transaction, every document I could find. I printed everything, photographed everything else. The next day, I called my lawyer. She asked me one question. "Do you want to fight quietly or end this loudly?" I said, "I want to burn the entire script they wrote for me and write my own." That night, I looked at my wedding ring. It didn't feel like a symbol of love anymore. It felt like a collar I hadn't noticed tightening until I couldn't breathe. So I took it off, put it in a box, labeled it, exhibits, evidence, proof. Because from this moment forward, my grief was over, and my revenge had begun. I stopped asking questions. I stopped crying. I stopped explaining myself. Because I wasn't looking for justice anymore. I was building strategy. It started with silence. I let them think I had surrendered, that their words worked, that their lies buried me. And while they gloated, I prepared. I hired an elite legal team through David's referral. Specialists in financial coercion, forged documentation, and estate theft. We began collecting evidence, not just of my signatures being forged, but the flow of money, the paper trail, and the complicity of each family member. Every transaction, every loan, every withdrawal. It was all there, written in the language of arrogance. I opened a private offshore account and transferred the last remaining untouched assets, a small set of foreign stocks my parents had placed in a forgotten safety net. Their final insurance. I used that to fund everything. Then I applied for dual citizenship, something my mother had started for me in her home country before she passed. It was approved in 3 months. I booked a flight quietly, left a note for Ronin that said, "Don't worry about me. I've decided to rest and reflect somewhere far away. Hope your family treats you as well as they've treated me." Then I vanished. No warning, no location, no contact. I wasn't running away. I was building distance, the kind that becomes a wall they could never climb. While they were posting beach photos, hosting dinner parties, and throwing money at Vanessa's failing luxury candle business, I was in a quiet apartment with no name on the buzzer, reviewing documents with my legal team and planning a global asset freeze. David filed reports with the International Financial Oversight Body. My lawyers submitted petitions across multiple jurisdictions. We had evidence of fraud, forgery, and coercion. The case wasn't just airtight. It was volcanic. They just didn't know it yet, because they still thought they'd won. Vanessa even posted an Instagram story 2 months later with the caption, "Some of us are born to inherit. Others are born to watch. Guess who got the villa? Nail Polish medium skin tone." I watched that clip on my burner phone and smiled. Let them think I was gone. Let them mock. Let them believe the lie they built. Because when you want revenge to last, you don't scream it. You architect it. And my blueprint was almost complete. 3 months after I vanished, Sylvia sent me a message. "Hope you're well. We're hosting a family event this summer. Vanessa's business is expanding. You should come visit as a guest, of course." I read it twice, and then deleted it, because I knew that in just a few weeks, they'd no longer be able to afford their own masks. It started with a call Sylvia couldn't return. Her platinum card declined. Then Edward's corporate account, frozen mid-purchase. And Vanessa's store? A giant red sticker appeared on the glass. Under investigation, property seized. They had no idea what hit them. Because while they were spending my parents' legacy on vanity and delusion, my lawyers had been working across 3 countries, with court orders, asset tracing, and fraud disclosures ready to detonate. Within 24 hours, all 11 accounts tied to the family trust, the fake companies, the offshore shelters, even Edward's pension pipeline, were frozen. Their phones started ringing. The family WhatsApp group exploded. And Ronin? He finally reached out. "Ronin, Sierra, did you do this? What's going on?" "Me? You should ask your accountant. Or maybe your lawyer. If you still have one." "Ronin, you're making a mistake. We're family." "Me. So was I. Until you made me a footnote in my own story." Click. The next day, media outlets picked it up. $15M heiress fights back after inheritance swindle. Daughter-in-law turns tables on family who called her a burden. I didn't leak it, but I didn't stop it either. Sometimes, the truth spreads all by itself, especially when your enemies are too arrogant to think anyone could rise from silence. By the end of the week, Vanessa's beach villa was repossessed. Sylvia's personal accounts were flagged for forgery. Edward's pension was under criminal scrutiny. The main family home, the very house I was dragged out of, was declared illegally acquired property. A judge issued the eviction order. Ronin sent another message. Ronin, you can't do this. Where will my parents live? Me. They can try the same sidewalk I landed on when they threw me out. Ronin, you've changed. Me. No. I finally remembered who I was before you all tried to erase me.
Click.
The hardest part? Not watching them fall. The hardest part was watching them lie to themselves as they fell.
They still tried to blame me.
They claimed I weaponized the legal system. They said I was holding a grudge.
No.
I was holding the truth. They were just choking on it now. 1 week after the eviction, Sylvia made one last attempt.
She emailed me.
You could have handled this better. Family should talk, not destroy. So I sent her a single reply. A forwarded email. From her own lawyer. Subject line: Criminal liability risks for Mrs. Sylvia Carlyle. No words.
Just the mirror.
Let her read what she did. Let her feel what I felt when I first discovered their signatures replacing mine. They thought they were clever. But when you build your empire on someone else's ashes, eventually the fire returns. 2 weeks after the accounts froze, the real avalanche began. Vanessa was the first to break. She walked into the courthouse in sunglasses and heels, pretending to be unfazed, but behind her, a dozen unpaid vendors were shouting outside with signs. You stole from your investors. Where's our money, Vanessa? She tried to claim ignorance. She tried to blame her bookkeeper. But the paper trail led directly to her. A judge froze her personal assets. The boutique was liquidated. Her bank statements showed millions in unaccounted transfers, all tied to the original inheritance. She screamed in court, called it a witch hunt. But when you spend blood money on crystals and ego,
you don't get mercy.
Sylvia and Edward were next. Their private lawyer turned on them after realizing his license was at risk. He submitted sworn affidavits proving they'd coerced me into signing documents during what he described as emotional instability. He backed it with video footage, hidden cameras in his own office. I watched those recordings. I saw Sylvia place her hand on mine during a meeting and say, "Just trust us. You're too overwhelmed to make these decisions right now. Let us handle everything. Just sign." I was pale,
shaking,
still grieving, but I signed. And now, that footage was Exhibit A. The DA's office officially opened a criminal fraud case. The charges included financial exploitation, document forgery, elder estate manipulation, coercion under duress. When the police knocked on their door, Sylvia tried to slam it. Edward tried to stall with legalese. Didn't work. They were arrested. The cuffs clicked.
And I didn't cheer. I didn't post about it.
I just watched the news like everyone else. Prominent family faces charges over $15 million inheritance fraud. Ronin tried to spin the story on social media, called me vengeful and ungrateful. But the comments weren't on his side. One read, "Bro, your parents dragged her out of her own house by her hair. Be grateful she didn't press charges for assault." Another, "She paid for your lifestyle, and you called her paranoid. You're the problem." The world saw it now. Not just the fraud, but the cowardice. The rot beneath the chandeliers. And what did I do during all this? I stayed quiet. Kept my name out of headlines. Didn't gloat.
Didn't retaliate.
Because this wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about correction. The universe had tilted off course. And I simply nudged it back. But I'll never forget the message I got from one of Sylvia's former friends, a woman who used to mock my modest fashion at parties. She wrote, "I used to think you were too quiet.
Too soft.
Now I realize you were just the only one with power that didn't need to scream. You won." I moved to the coast. Not the flashy kind where yachts blind you with their reflection, but the quiet kind. A little town where the ocean didn't roar, it hummed. Where people said hello without scanning your jewelry first. Where I could breathe again. I bought a cottage with old wood floors and a garden that looked forgotten. I made it mine. And for the first time in years, I slept without clutching my fists. I started over in small ways. I took long walks, drank coffee with cinnamon, volunteered at a local youth center where girls with soft voices hid loud minds. And one day, while cleaning out the attic, I found my mother's old journal. Her words felt like a whisper across time. They may try to shrink you,
Smile.
then grow louder. I cried for 2 hours. Then I went back downstairs and started typing. 6 months later, I launched the Inheritance Project, a nonprofit for women who had their names, rights, or wealth stolen by family, spouses, or legal manipulation. We provided lawyers, financial audits, emotional therapy, and, when needed, a safe escape. The media covered it quietly. They tried to drag my past into the story. But I declined every major interview. Because this time, my name wasn't a headline. It was a lifeline for someone else. I never changed my number. Ronin kept trying. Sometimes with guilt. Sometimes with rage. Sometimes with silence followed by a single question mark. I never answered. The last message he sent was a photo of the house they lost, now covered in dust. Boarded windows. Hope you're happy, he wrote. I was. But not because they suffered. I was happy because I no longer had to explain my worth to people who never wanted to see it. One afternoon, at a bookstore near the harbor, I ran into a woman named Carla. She was struggling to choose between 2 novels. I made a suggestion. We laughed. We had coffee. 2 months later, we were building a new life. One with late-night conversations, shared scars, and no masks. She never once asked me how much I had in the bank. She only ever asked how much peace I had in my heart. I said, more than I ever imagined. I still wear the sapphire ring, the one my mother gave me, the one they tried to steal. But now I wear it on a chain around my neck, not as a trophy, but as a vow. A promise to the girl who once shook on the pavement, bag ripped open, blood on her arm, that she would never again be dragged by anyone, except forward. It happened exactly 2 years to the day. I was on stage at a private women's summit in Lisbon. Small audience. No cameras. Just stories and hearts. The theme was reclaiming what was taken. I wasn't meant to speak. I was there to listen. But someone recognized me. Whispers floated. That's her. She's the one who exposed the inheritance fraud. The host asked me gently, would you like to say something? I paused, then stood. And for the first time in public, I told my story. Not the headlines. Not the rage. The real story. About the moment I was pulled by the hair out of a house built with my parents' love. About the silence that followed. About how I turned that silence into strategy. And I ended with this. They thought they'd taken everything. But what they couldn't touch was the seed my mother planted in me. You don't need permission to rise. And if they try to erase your name, write it in a place they can't reach, your own story. The room stood still. Then the applause rose. I saw tears. I saw knowing eyes. And I saw one woman in the back, silent, trembling, who mouthed the words, thank you. That's when I knew. I didn't just survive. I shifted the ground I stood on. 3 days later, I got a letter forwarded from my old legal team. It was from Sylvia. I've lost everything. Edward is ill. Vanessa moved abroad. I'm in a shelter.
I'm sorry, Sierra.
I don't expect forgiveness. But I wanted you to know. I was wrong. I stared at the words. Not with hate. Not with pity. Just clarity. You don't always need to slam the door. Sometimes you just need to walk through a better one. I didn't reply. Not because I hated her, but because closure doesn't always need words. The cottage by the sea is still mine. The garden finally blooms. And every spring, I plant one new tree. This year I planted a fig tree. Because my mother once said, a fig takes years before it gives fruit. But once it does, it never forgets who watered it. I think that's who I've become. Not the woman they tried to bury. Not the girl they dragged. Not the heiress they robbed. But the woman who grew, despite it all.
And now?
I don't need revenge. I have something far better. A name no one can steal.